The snapshot cycle for the next update of Minecraft has officially kicked off, and we are seeing some really interesting developments. Bundles are finally making a proper comeback, and redstone torches are gonna look different now too. Don't worry though, they make me uncomfortable too. But the development that I think we're all interested in the most is what the heck is going on with minecarts. You might have seen videos going around of crazy experiments, minecarts doing things that we've never imagined they would, and that's actually because the latest snapshot changes how they work, and they've been given multiple improvements to make them more of a viable transportation option. There are several tweaks that have been made. Minecarts can now move smoother, jump better, and are less likely to derail. Additionally, and this is where the fun begins, a new game rule has been added called minecart max speed. As you might guess, this means that minecarts can also go faster now, up to 1,000 blocks per second faster. This combined with their new jumping capabilities, and we have these minecart launchers everyone is obsessed with building. Now, full disclosure, these changes are not set in stone. A lot of them are currently known as experiments and can be turned on by activating their respective experiment feature. So there's not a 100% chance that these minecart changes will come to the game. I mean, we've lost more for less. But I really hope they do, because these minecart changes really got me excited. And it's not just because of how fun they look. It's about the potential it has for giving minecarts their own place in the game. Ever since the elytra and ice blocks stole all the attention, in the back of my mind I always thought about how much I wanted minecarts to be able to compete with them again. Minecarts and rails add so much character to Minecraft worlds. They give you a reason to build more infrastructure, connect your builds together, and just make worlds feel more alive. Building minecart rails was what everyone did back in the day to get around, but now many players don't even touch them. And it's a shame considering how much minecarts are a part of Minecraft's identity. I'm sure there's plenty of uses, like in terms of redstone, but as a transportation option, they've become pretty obsolete. But sure enough, these changes are being experimented with for that very reason, to make minecarts a stronger competitor with the currently superior transportation options. The log states that the team's long-term goal is to make minecarts a viable option for players compared to the other late-game options which currently dominate most playstyles. Now that these changes are being experimented with, and we have confirmation that Mojang wants to change the meta, it really got me thinking about how to rework transportation, and no longer scared that I was just being a boomer. If transportation is going to get rebalanced, how should it be done? There are 4 main forms of high-speed transportation in Minecraft: horses, minecarts, elytra, and ice boats. That's not counting any wacky alternatives like ender pearl stasis or walking. Out of the aforementioned 4, horses and minecarts are weak, and by comparison, elytras and ice boats are overpowered. But I don't think the stronger options should be nerfed, because I don't think that that's the way balancing this should work. We don't want to make these stronger playstyles lame, so let's talk about buffing our weaker options. At the current moment, the elytra and ice boats dominate late game, while horses serve a small amount of use in earlier game and are obliterated once the stronger options are acquired. Minecarts are usually ignored from the get-go. While I mostly want to focus on making minecarts more viable, I also want to take care to ensuring that horses don't get completely left behind either. In my mind, minecarts, elytra, and ice boats should all be able to compete in endgame, while horses should be good enough to have the early game locked down. They should be something that you don't feel like you immediately need to rush past to get to these other upgrades. I'm not going to try to get them to a place where they can compete with the other 3 though, as I don't think that's practical. Horses should just be the king of early game. Back to minecarts. They arguably take the most prep time and investment to use. They require gold, iron, redstone power, and the cost of the minecarts themselves. Compare this to the ice boat method, which only takes the items in its name, ice and boat. Minecarts are incredibly slow compared to ice boats, and yet they take more prep and are more of a hassle to set up. So it's no wonder that they've been left behind. So how do we go about buffing them? First of all, I think all of the changes in the snapshot that make them smoother should absolutely be implemented. Minecarts should, to a certain extent, feel like a luxury experience, efficient and rewarding. Make them as smooth as possible. There's still the problem of speed and cost though, so I think that the Minecraft max speed game rule should absolutely become a permanent thing, a hard-coded value in all games. One, because higher speed will obviously make minecarts better for getting you from point A to point B, but also because I love that we can launch minecarts into the sky now. It seems like something that really fits well into Minecraft's sense of imagination. As for the actual max speed value, surprise, I don't think it should be 1,000 blocks per second. I think that might possibly lead to some issues with performance and glitches, especially on bedrock. bedrock. But I still love this idea of missile launchers and bullet train speed rails. I really like the concept of momentum. This mechanic feels like it mimics real-life roller coasters. Don't worry though, I know that's not how roller coasters work, I think. So my current golden number is 110 blocks per second. I think that gets us to the high-speed fun we're seeing in the snapshot without things getting too ridiculous. The fact that a higher speed cap also means you don't need as many powered rails to get around is perfect too, since if you build up momentum, you don't need as many powered rails to get you to where you need to go, thus making the minecart a more affordable option. I always found setting up powered rails to be a bit of a tedious process, especially over slopes, and seeing the long line of uninterrupted rail that we can have with this momentum is awesome. Rails will look like real train tracks now, instead of being interrupted by these ugly red and yellow lights every few blocks. This might be a bit out there, but perhaps if we want to keep a more grounded option, we could keep our original powered rails at the original speed cap, and not change them at all. But we could also have a second type of rail added that is able to contribute to higher speeds. For instance, if you are already going 8 blocks per second, a powered rail won't be capable of raising that number any higher, but a new, more powerful rail will be. That way you can still have chill rails that are fast but don't get out of control, and preserve the nostalgic likeness of the original powered rail. At the same time, you can have these new amazing Quicksilver rails we're seeing in these experiments. I wouldn't overcomplicate the recipe too much, maybe just require copper in the recipe so it gets another use. This might seem a little silly, but I would also be up for including a resistance buff to a player sitting in a minecart. Just a slight amount of resistance. Maybe if you would have got hit by an arrow that would have done 3 hearts, it will only do 2. Not that exact situation, I mean, that kind of decrease in damage all around. So what about horses? Well, in order to accomplish the goal of having horses kind of be the king of early game, the key would be to make the horse more appealing to the player who has not yet got an elytra. Make acquiring a horse more worth it, so the average player doesn't just dismiss them altogether. I think just raising the chance of finding a higher tier horse would be a good start. Increase whatever likelihood there currently is of a horse spawning with above average speed, jumping, and health, because at the current moment, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like it takes a little bit too long to find a horse that isn't mediocre. So have more strong horse in the pool of statistics. Whatever determines what kind of horse you get, make it so more good horses are getting out there. On another note, we could consider adding enchantments for horse armor. These could be generic enchantments like the protection enchantments, or maybe more specific enchantments that can contribute to new playstyles, such as honing in on the combat potential of being on horseback. Maybe longer reach with swords or tridents to mimic the essence of a jouster, or an enchantment that makes horses better able to traverse water. These enchantments don't have to have anything to do with speed. The horse is never going to outpace the other competition. But if you give it more of a combat role, it can have its own specific niche. Place any and all of these enchantments in the ancient city to also buff that loot pool, and that's currently how I would rebalance transportation. Elytra and ice boats get to stay powerful, while their lesser used counterparts now have an equal appeal. I don't think anyone's going to be ditching the elytra for the minecart or horse with these changes. That's not the point. The point is just to make the other options more exciting and useful. I'm not going to go to battle for any of these ideas. Well, in the comments I think I argue with my comments like more than other YouTubers. Like if you disagree with me, chances are I'm gonna argue. It's kind of unprofessional, but I can't stop. But these ideas are just give or take. I'll probably change my mind about them in a couple more weeks. Overall, Mojang really hit the nail on the head with this snapshot, and if they continue in this sort of grounded and innovative direction, I think they'll be able to take care of this themselves. However, if you are listening, Mojang, and I know sometimes you do, you've been here before on this channel, I just ask that we get absolutely powerful minecarts to reward the time that it takes to make rails. No half measures. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and thanks for watching. I'm Lufa.